Well, good evening and welcome into a Monday edition of KC Sports Night. I hope everyone had a great weekend, or at least better than the Royals after they lost 2 straight. We got 4 big topics to talk about here on KC Sports Night. But before we get to those, Gabe Swartz joining us here on the show. Gabe, you have a good weekend. How'd you celebrate Mother's Day?
I did brunch with my mother, and then went over and had a dinner at my mother-in-law's as well. So good weekend, beautiful weather, great time out on the patio. It was good. Dampened a little bit by the play of the Royals on Saturday and Sunday, specifically not necessarily being able to score. But it was a good weekend overall.
I did not mean to jump a pop quiz on you there. You took a little pause there to respond.
No, I was literally just thinking of what I did yesterday. I couldn't remember.
But hey, we got your mom and mother-in-law. Gabe is in.
There you go.
You know, you did it right. Shout out to all the moms. Happy Mother's Day to you. One day late, but we said it yesterday too. All right, so 4 big topics today. The Royals limped out of Kansas City. Once the talk of the town. Now they've lost 2 straight. The Chiefs, the NFL released their schedule, they released their first game of the season today. Schedule comes out on Wednesday. We're going to talk about the Chiefs' opponents, maybe some of the big exciting games and what we're most looking forward to. Plus, Sporting Kansas City is going to play their 3rd game basically in a week. 3 games in a week this week. They played on Saturday. They have a game on Wednesday. They also have a game on Saturday. We're going to talk about that. And the KC Current dominate at home yesterday. Another fun, exciting day at CP Casey Stadium. But the biggest topic on KC sports fans right now is the Kansas City Royals. Friday night, a walk-off win. Freddie Fermin gave the Royals a 2-1 win, I believe, in the 12th inning or late in the game. But then after that, that gave the Royals their 16th win in 18 games. It was their best stretch of baseball since 1978. Times were high. Everything was going good for the Royals. 30,000 plus out there at the K. 30,000 plus again on Saturday. The Royals lose that one, only score 1 run in that game. And then on Sunday, pretty much the same story. Big crowd on hand. The Royals, though, struggling to score offense. Gabe, my question for you. The Royals start a 3-game set tonight at the Houston Astros. They were winning games a lot. Pitching and defense was really getting on, but now we've seen 4 runs in the last 3 games. Is this just going to be like this all season long? Because for me, it feels like we're going to be kind of white-knuckling this season.
A little bit,
They can't really score.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I'm not overreacting. Saturday night, it was I think that Garrett Crochet pitched incredibly well for the Red Sox. You're going to expect that. He was an ace. If anything, the disappointing thing was Cole Reagan's not necessarily matching him. And specifically kind of losing control of the game in the 5th inning against the 8 and 9 hitters in the Red Sox lineup. So really not necessarily getting beat by the best, even though you then look at the end of the day and Rafael Devers, I think, had a 4 or 5 hit game that night. I really felt like, if anything, the disappointment was Sunday afternoon, because you get the 1-0 lead. You've got guys on first and second, nobody out in early on in the game, and you've got Jonathan India up. You've got the top of the order coming up, and India isn't able to do anything. Bobby's not able to do anything. The middle of the order just was not able to deliver against Lucas Giolito after he kind of gave you some help with throwing the ball down the line on a bunt. And that was really the turning point, because I think that once the Red Sox even things up, and you got another moment where Rafael Devers proved why he won AL Player of the Week. He hits a 440-foot home run to center field against Seth Lugo, and so Seth Lugo goes up and puts up a quality start. And I think that it felt disappointing just because he didn't get the run support, and that's kind of been the theme of the Royals' losses this year, is giving themselves chances. They have a well-pitched game for the most part, and they just don't take advantage of turning 1-run innings into crooked number innings. And so I'm not worried about Saturday night. I think that just happens every once in a while. But Sunday was more frustrating. Like, you're going to lose baseball games. You can't win every single game all season long. And to complain about it after winning 7 straight and winning 16 of 18 is to me fruitless. But Sunday was the same recipe of what had been troubling them in April. And so we'll see if they can go to Houston this week and put together a solid series against a team that they've already beaten in a series earlier this year.
Yeah, it's a matchup of two good teams. The Royals taking 2 out of 3 from Houston earlier in the year, but I think so. We're now a little more than 40 games through the season. We have a pretty good picture of who these Royals are. They have elite starting pitching, they have elite relief pitching, they have very good defense, but we know the flaws of this team is offensively they're not that great. On the base paths, they are not that great. I want to walk you through the batting averages of the lineup tonight. I'm not going to say any names. I'm just going to say the numbers of what their average is. Leadoff hitter, 224. 2-spot, 315. 3-spot, 217. Cleanup hitter, 240. 5-hitter, 306. 6-hole, 212. 7-hole, 189. 8-hole, 272. 9-spot, 268. I know a lot of Royals fans are kind of expecting a lot of things to go well for the season. There's a lot of expectations here on this team, but when they're running out a lineup with those numbers, how can we expect them to perform offensively? It's kind of mind-boggling to me that the Royals continue to run out some of these guys, and we know what the result is. But the reason I'm bringing this up after we're talking about how we know that they're elite at starting pitching or elite with relief is that looks to be an area of surplus for the Royals, and I think that we might be getting to a point in the season where the Royals might have to look at trading a pitcher to get a hitter. The Royals right now, I know they're 24-18, but they also just won 16 of 18 games, and that was a hot stretch. The Royals, they're going to be floating around 500, maybe a little bit above all year long. If they really want to become a good team, they might have to trade a starting pitcher. Gabe, my question here, is that something that you would be okay with? I know they traded Brady Singer in the offseason, but to trade another one, is that a step too far?
Maybe. I think at this point, like it is worth reminding yourself that things aren't as bad as it seems in the sense that, yeah, they're not leading the division, but they're 2.5 games behind the Tigers, who are the best team in the AL at the moment, and they are 3 wins total behind the best record in baseball, which is the Dodgers, who have 27 wins. The Royals do have 24 wins. So we can say all we want about needing extreme streaks, but I think that the truth lies somewhere in the middle of like the pace of wins that they're on is probably pretty correct. The in terms of the actual total record of 24-18, and they're not going to. In reality, they're probably not going to have these crazy losing streaks like they did on the first road trip, and they're probably not going to have these crazy winning streaks like they've done twice in the last 2 weeks. But I think that they can play at the pace, the record pace of winning series and winning home series, and going 5-2 on a 7-game homestand. Like I think that is the kind of thing that this team can do. I think that, to your point about the batting average and such, yeah, there's still going to be room for them to improve the corner outfield, whether that is buying at the trade deadline, whether that is Jack Caglione later this summer making a debut and becoming the guy who replaces the Kevin Biggio or the Hunter Renfroe of the day-to-day starting lineup. I actually think that like Drew Waters has been fine. I think Drew Waters getting extended at bats is proving to be a solid thing because he's putting together solid plate appearances and is kind of found a groove being somewhere between 8 and 9 in the lineup down there at the bottom. I really think that one of the things that can put the Royals to the top, and you can say whatever you want about whether it's fair or not to expect this or to think that this needs to be the thing that changes, is truly like Bobby Witt Jr.'s batting average with runners in scoring position. He's getting on base a ton, but his batting average when guys are on base, and specifically with guys on second and third, we saw it on Saturday night. He struck out with the bases loaded. We saw it yesterday. He struck out with guys on first and second. And so not to say that he's not playing well. He's playing extremely well. But when you're one of the 5 best players in baseball, and that's being light with it, I think he's probably one of the 3 best players in baseball, then you're going to be held to that standard, and as such, you're going to be expected to deliver with runners in scoring position. And to my earlier point about feeling like that was the inning in which things could have changed, yeah, I think that that's one of those spots where you need a productive out and not just a strikeout in those spots. And then we look at things differently because, yes, in that inning, the bottom of the order got on base. 7, 8, 9 all got on base, and those were typically guys who are not producing a ton for the Royals. So I think that if those guys hit better, Salvador Perez, for as much as we've belabored him for, like, his batting average, his expected batting average is way higher than his true batting average. And I feel like we've seen it 2, 3, 4 times a week. He hits a ball super hard and a defender makes a crazy play. over the course of the season, that should even things out. Vinny delivered a run batted in on Friday night. That was critical in the 11th.
And he's 2 for 4 yesterday. Two of the 4 hits.
Yeah, so I'm not panicking. I'm also not going to act like they're going to stretch or roll off a 7-game winning streak once a month or every 2 weeks like they've done over the last 3 weeks. So we'll see. I'm extremely intrigued to see what this little 3-game road trip looks like, because we've only seen them go on these extended road trips so far this season, aside from the brief little trip to Milwaukee in very early April.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what happens, because we know the Royals do play so well at home, to see if they can take maybe the show on the road and see if they get something done down there in Houston, in a ballpark that they obviously have had some success in the past. But I really think this team is going to need to get some help from Bobby Witt Jr. later on this season, because we know he is a superstar. But how many years did we see Mike Trout being the best player in all of baseball, and the LA Angels did absolutely nothing? It's just not a sport where one man can carry a team, and Bobby is going to need help. Bobby is a superstar. It is unbelievable that Bobby Witt Jr. is playing baseball in Kansas City, but he cannot do this alone. And maybe the help, it could be Jack Caglione. I'm kind of surprised the Royals have not called him up to AAA yet. They kind of say they're not in a rush, but you see what this guy's doing. He's second in the Texas League in home runs. He leads the league in RBIs. I think I saw a stat online the other day on Twitter that he hits the ball just so hard. Like, if he was in the major leagues right now, he'd be one of the guys that hits the baseball the absolute hardest. Yeah. And I can't believe that he's still in AA, because this team needs offense. And I know he's position locked at first base with Vinny there here in the big leagues, but they have. He's not helping the Royals in AA. If we got him up to AAA, let's get the train moving, because you can't sit there and, at least for me, you cannot sit there and say that Jack Caglione is not one of the 25 best players in the Royals organization, because that guy, his offensive ability alone, that's just the threat of the power. They are putting out guys that how many at bats did they give MJ Melendez this year? If we gave, how many at bats did they give to Hunter Renfroe? It's just like, it seems to me there's a player with more talent and more ability that they're not giving the at bats to. So we're going to see what happens there. The Royals 3-game set at Houston. One note I want to say before we get off the Royals, they welcome the St. Louis Cardinals to town for this weekend, the 40th anniversary of the 1985 World Series victory over the Cardinals. Sunday's series finale is on our air on KSMO 110. Don't want to miss that. It's a huge series. Going to be a lot of exciting baseball out there at the K. So Sunday, 1:10 p.m. KSMO. Tune in, be there or be square. All right, the Chiefs. The NFL released their their first game of the season today. We found out that the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles are going to host the Dallas Cowboys in the season opener. Gabe, what are your kind of thoughts on that matchup? Eagles taking on a very interesting Cowboys team to me, with a new head coach and obviously maybe Dak coming back at quarterback.
Dak coming back. They just made the George Pickens trade last week.
Yeah.
So we'll
what's going on in Dallas?
We'll see what that looks like. And it's two teams that the Chiefs will play at some point in this season. I'm extremely intrigued to see what the bounce back looks like for these teams, and specifically, the Eagles. We saw it in the Super Bowl how relentless their defense was, but they lost significant pieces from their pass rush this past season. So it's an interesting game, because it feels like that could have been. I don't know. I'm always intrigued by the way that the league selects the opening night game, because we've been spoiled in the sense that we've seen the Chiefs be featured in it so frequently, because it means that you won the Super Bowl the year prior. And every year where the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl and we've known going into it, okay, the Chiefs are going to be the debut game, it's always been, okay, so who are they going to pair against the Chiefs, and do they want to – you don't necessarily want to burn the most intriguing game of their schedule in week one, because football's back. People are going to watch it regardless. So we've seen the Chiefs get the Texans when the Texans were good. We've seen the Chiefs get the Lions, and that was interesting, because the Lions, it was kind of the league betting on the Lions being good, and they bet correctly in that regard.
Yeah.
And then the Ravens, and that was a great game last season as well. So having a divisional matchup, we've never seen. The Chiefs, when they've won the Super Bowl, have not been pitted against like the Chargers or any of those spots in week one. But Cowboys-Eagles will be a good one, and it's always fun to – you just know that they're totally in on seeing the Cowboys in a marquee spot like that. So I'm intrigued to see what the Chiefs look like against the NFC East this year. The Giants aren't going to be anything, but like the Eagles, the Super Bowl rematch, the Cowboys is always fun to have a chance to beat them. And then Washington with Jaden Daniels and what he did in reaching the NFC Championship game last year. I think that is one of the, if not the most exciting non-AFC game to me for the Chiefs this year, just from an intriguing standpoint. Is it feels like we've seen all of these over the 6-7 years that Patrick Mahomes has been the starter. It's like, oh, is it Mahomes versus Allen? Is it Mahomes versus Jackson? Is it Mahomes versus Burrow? I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that people are going to, by the time that the Chiefs play the Commanders, I think Jaden Daniels is going to have a pretty big second year with Deebo Samuel in Washington, all the extra resources they've put around him at the offensive line and such. I think when we see Chiefs Commanders, we're going to have a lot of the is this the guy who can push Mahomes arguments from the national people, and that'll be exciting to see.
Full disclosure, Gabe is a graduate of Arizona State and covered Jaden Daniels, so we might have a little bit of a man crush on him.
I think he's incredible.
But Jaden Daniels is obviously a very, very good player. All right, so let's go through the opponents just so everyone knows.
Yep.
The Chiefs are going to play 10 playoff teams next year. 7 of those games are going to be at home. But here are the home games. Baltimore Ravens, Denver Broncos, Detroit Lions, Houston Texans, Colts, Chargers, Raiders, Eagles, and Commanders. Then on the road, the Chiefs are going to have to play the Bills, at the Cowboys, at the Broncos, at the Jaguars, at the Raiders, at the Chargers, at the Giants, and at the Tennessee Titans. So a lot of big games here on the schedule. I'm going to be very intrigued to see where they fall, especially that game against Buffalo. Also the home game against the Ravens, because those are games that could determine who is going to be the number 1 seed. And we see so many times late in the year, the Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, those fans, those media markets try to manufacture this rivalry between the Chiefs and the teams that they just beat year in and year out. Gabe, maybe now that we know some of those opponents outside of those Washington Commanders, we know you love Jaden Daniels. What's maybe the most intriguing matchup to you?
I think that you can find a storyline with almost any of them.
There are a lot of them. The Detroit Lions at home. I mean, come on. These are
the Titans. You're getting the Titans in the year where they have the number 1 pick, Cam Ward. Yeah, exactly. You're getting the Raiders with the fresh new coach of Pete Carroll, the first-round pick of Ashton Genty,
Tom Brady in ownership,
Geno Smith. There's all these different things. I think that the layup pick is Chiefs-Eagles, the Super Bowl rematch, and that's mostly because we've seen time and time again Bills-Chiefs in the regular season doesn't necessarily mean as much as Bills-Chiefs in the playoffs does, and we tend to end up with seeing the Bills and Chiefs play in the playoffs. And that one ends up typically mattering a lot more. And you can say that because the Chiefs win all of the playoff ones and tend to lose all of the regular season ones, which maybe shows you which team is playing its cards more than the other in those spots. So the Bills are not the one that I would circle the most. I would say that it's Chiefs-Eagles. I'm looking forward to that, not only because we've seen 2 Super Bowls between the teams, but we've seen even the Monday Night Football game a couple years ago at Arrowhead that it felt like the Chiefs gave away and kind of laid the groundwork for all of the frustration boiling over for the Chiefs and their receivers with the Marquez Valdes-Scantling drop. So there's just been a lot involved with Chiefs-Eagles, and it'll probably be you would think, one of the last times that you'll ever see Travis Kelce play against the Eagles with his brother still being around in the picture. Maybe that's an ESPN game, who knows. But I'm fired up for Wednesday just to see it. It's always, you know who all the matchups are, but seeing it all in order and how it's going to lay out from a rest perspective, all of those things is always fascinating to me and something that really starts to get you excited for the fall.
Yeah, no, it's funny because we're talking about a schedule release, but it actually is something that does merit talking about specifically for what you just said, because you do see the order that it is released, when we will see the journey that the Chiefs will have to navigate this season to hopefully get back to the Super Bowl. So we're going to have to see a lot of those big games. Again, I have to agree with Gabe. I think the most intriguing is for sure that Philadelphia Eagles game, because that game that they played against the Eagles, that's maybe the worst game that we've seen the Chiefs play in years. It just happened to be on the biggest stage with the most eyeballs when the stakes were the highest, and that's going to be a huge huge motivating factor for these guys because they know they were absolutely embarrassed with the entire world watching. If you think Patrick Mahomes is okay with that, if you think Travis Kelce is okay with that, if you think Andy Reid, Clark Hunt, the powers that be with the Chiefs are okay with that, you're out of your mind. They will absolutely do everything in their power to not ever have that ever happen again. But the Chiefs are playing 10 playoff teams coming up, playoff teams from a year ago coming up in 2025. It looks like the NFL is going to be very, very competitive this year, Gabe. I saw the two leading teams win totals over under, I believe are 11.5, and it's the Chiefs and the Eagles. So the two teams that were in the Super Bowl, 17-game season, and the over-under's an 11.5 game set by Vegas. Those guys put money on this and make money on this. So it seems like we're going to have a pretty big season coming up, a lot of parity in the NFL. So we got two more topics here before we get out of here, both dealing with soccer. Sporting Kansas City lost 1-0 to Portland on Saturday. It's the second game they've lost this season where the other team scored an incredible bicycle kick. So and they're both in the Kerry Zavagnin era, so it's kind of been, I don't know what it is. When you play Sporting KC, for some reason, you're just feeling the bicycle, and it works. So, but right now, the Sporting has fallen to 3-3 under Kerry Zavagnin. They are 3-1-8 overall. They're going through a stretch, 3 games in about 7 days. They're taking on St. Louis on the road on Wednesday. Then on Saturday, they're going on the road to San Diego FC. Gabe, it's a bicycle kick. I think we have to say this is just bad luck for Sporting. But again, they did struggle to score. They did not score against Portland. What are your kind of thoughts on where Sporting is now 3-3 under Kerry? We've seen a lot of goals, and we've also seen them struggle to score. What do you kind of make of this group? Because I don't know if we can make anything because it doesn't look consistent.
Yeah, that's the thing is every match seems like it's a different style of play, I guess, or
that's
at
a
least
tremendous point.
In this regard, they conceded the goal relatively early, and then they were able to produce some chances, but once Portland's up and they know that Sporting is not necessarily the greatest offense in the world, you can be a little more conservative and not worry about whether they're going to beat you on counters or whatever. And so I think that, yeah, the bicycle kick point that you bring up is it's like, okay, what are you supposed to do? And there was specifically, like, I saw one angle on social media from ground level behind the goal, and you can even kind of see the perspective from the goaltender's view, and you're just like, okay, well, you could barely pick the ball up until it was almost past you. And so you don't necessarily think that it's like, oh, that's bad goaltending. It's more of just great creative offensive soccer. So that's one thing. I think you got to look forward to. Anytime Sporting plays St. Louis, it feels like that fires people up, and specifically with the way that the previous matchup went between the two teams. I think Wednesday night should be exciting.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up because it was the first win of the Kerry Zavagnin era. Mm-hmm. There was almost a fight after the game between Sporting and St. Louis. And I was actually seeing some people talk about this on social media, some MLS media people from outside of the Kansas City and St. Louis area. They were like, it's so funny that these two fan bases and media markets are kind of building this game up as which city loves soccer. Because he's like, both these teams aren't good right now. The Sporting's 3-1-8, and St. Louis is behind them in the standings. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but it's a rivalry game. It's who Sporting KC got their first win of the season on it, and last week one of their defenders or midfielders, told them it gave the team a lot of belief. So we'll see what happens. But one thing that it's kind of confusing me about Sporting Kansas City is a couple weeks ago, Daniel Shallowy, a Blue Valley Northwest alum, just like Gabe over here, said after a game that they were nowhere close to being able to have a clean sheet on defense. That's just defensively they did not have the ability to do that. And then the very next game they have a clean sheet. And like this game against Portland, if that wasn't a bicycle kick, it'd be a 0-0 game. Like it was. So it seems like, at least to me, they're still figuring out who they are under Kerry Zavagnin. But 3-3 in 6 games, obviously a much better start to his era than they started the season under Peter Vermees. We'll see what happens there. Staying on soccer. The KC Current, they're the best team in the NWSL. They're at the top of the table for the 3rd week in a row. Yesterday, Jason Sudeikis on hand, Ted Lasso for a 4-1 win as the Current dominated at home it was a huge day out there at CPKC Stadium. There were a whole bunch of families, mothers, grandmas, daughters, all out there celebrating Mother's Day. I actually got to catch up with a lot of them, and it was very heartwarming to see like all these Kansas City families come out to the stadium and celebrate Mother's Day in a stadium that's purpose-built for women, the first one in the world. Like we are, that's happening here in Kansas City, and we're at the forefront, and that's because of the people that we have here in town that built that stadium, the Long family. Shout out to them, but. Long story where I'm getting here is that CPKC Stadium is a genuine home field advantage. The current, I think it was their 20th win out of 24 games or something close to that out there at CPKC Stadium. And it's kind of interesting to me when you see the looks on the other team's faces when they come out to CPKC Stadium, because it is a packed house, 11,500 people. There are celebrities, Jason Sudeikis, there was Heidi Gardner a few weeks ago. Gabe, we know that Arrowhead is a tremendous home field advantage, but is the best home field advantage in Kansas City at CPKC Stadium? Is that too far?
That
the
might
Kingdom
be,
might burn me down.
Yeah, that might be a little too far. You also are putting that up against Kaufman, which at the moment the Royals are 16-7.
More wins at home than any team in Major League Baseball. That's a great point.
So I would say home cooking. There's some home cooking going on for Kansas City, regardless of sports.
And the KC Mavericks.
Yeah, there you go. And you always, down the road, Allen Fieldhouse typically is a pretty solid home court advantage for people as well. I think the interesting thing is that when they're at home, it feels like they can score almost at will. Like you look up and it becomes a 2, 3, 4 goal game in like a snap of a finger. And I think one of the most important things in terms of at least looking ahead for the current is that Temwa Chawinga came back and she produced a goal. And so that feels like the most dangerous version of the current attack is when she's operating, Tabina's operating. They've got so many different options. Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing that stands out to me is when you talk about the home field advantage, it isn't necessarily that that they're swarming defensively or anything. It's more of like an overwhelming offensive like avalanche when they play at home. Whereas when they go on the road, you can see them winning in lower scoring matches. So that's what stands out. But yeah, it's an incredible home field advantage and very impressive to see in a league that not every team is getting that kind of support at home, and the Current certainly are.
I think the coolest thing is just the buy-in that we've seen from not only the city, but I mean some of our greatest ambassadors. Heidi Gardner going to the game, like our Jason Sudeikis yesterday going to the game, being involved, putting their name out there. And then also this weekend, we actually talked to the Premier Lacrosse League. They're going to host their All-Star game at CPKC Stadium. So that stadium brings that event to town. It brought rugby to town. CPKC Stadium, the Current, bringing a lot of good things to Kansas City. It's a big week for them. We got to say this before we get off here. They take on the Orlando Pride coming up this weekend. Orlando won the league a year ago. Right now, the Current number 1 in the league, Orlando number 2. So that is going to be a great matchup. We're going to have coverage of that this week. Also, the KC Mavericks are in the Western Conference Finals. Their game 1 of that is on Thursday. Game 2 is on Friday out at Cable Dama Arena. They've won 5 playoff games in a row. They're one of the best teams in the entire ECHL. League runner-up a year ago, and they're playing their best hockey of the season right now. So be on the lookout for that. Gabe, any other notes? Did we miss anything, or are we good?
I don't think so.
All right.
NBA draft lottery tonight, so we'll see the future of the NBA in that regard. But
no KU picks, probably.
No KU
no one
picks,
invited to the combine.
Very unlikely to see any K-Staters, but it's always interesting to see the way that league will shape up. And then Royals 7-10 and highlights tonight at 10.
Yeah, and shout out Christian Brown playing great for the Nuggets.
He's playing. He had a really good game yesterday. They just couldn't deliver in the fourth.
Yeah, balling out, making all us local guys proud. Well, thanks. That's Look at Sports here. KC Sports Tonight on this Monday night for myself and Gabe Swartz. Thanks, everybody, and have a good one.